When she sees you've moved on peacefully, the first thing that hits her is the shock of your calmness. She expected anger, maybe resentment, or at least some sign that you still care enough to react, but instead, you're calm, genuinely calm. No drama, no attempts to prove a point, no hidden messages, no emotional chaos. That silence, that peace speaks louder than any words ever could. It tells her something powerful. She no longer has control over your emotions, and that realization shakes her more than anything else you could have done. At first, she tries to rationalize it. She might tell herself that you're pretending, that you're faking your peace just to make her feel something. But the more she watches, the more she realizes it's not an act. It's real. You're not trying to win her back. You're not trying to make her jealous. You're not chasing closure. You've simply accepted what happened and let go. That kind of emotional detachment is rare, and it's something she didn't expect from you. It forces her to see you from a different perspective, not as the man who once needed her, but as the man who learned to live without her. The female ego thrives on the idea that she can still affect you, that she still matters enough to trigger an emotional reaction. But when she sees that even her existence no longer disturbs your peace, it hits her ego like a punch. She may smile in front of others, pretending she doesn't care, but deep down, she's wondering, how did he move on so easily? How can he look so calm after everything? That's when the internal dialogue begins. She replays old conversations, old arguments, and old memories, trying to understand how the same man who once cared so deeply can now be so unaffected. Your calmness becomes her chaos. She starts questioning her own importance, wondering if she ever really mattered. That's the silent power of peace. It makes people confront themselves. When you stop reacting, she's left alone with her own emotions, her own guilt, and her own confusion. The absence of your emotional energy leaves a void, and that void starts echoing louder than your presence ever did. You didn't have to block her. You didn't have to post motivational quotes, and you didn't have to prove that you've moved on. You simply lived your life, focused, grounded, at ease. And that's what makes her feel the shift. Your peace becomes her trigger because it exposes how much she still seeks external validation while you found internal balance. She realizes that you've reached a level she hasn't. Emotional independence. And when a woman sees you've moved on peacefully, it's not just your silence that hurts, it's the realization that you've truly let go. And that's when she finally understands that the man who once needed her validation has now found his strength in solitude. When a woman sees that you've truly moved on and no longer seek her validation, it hits her deeper than she ever expected. At first, she might not even recognize what's happening. She notices that you're quieter, more distant, less reactive, but she tells herself it doesn't matter. Yet underneath that calm denial, something inside her starts to shift. Because what her ego thrived on before, your attention, your care, your emotional investment, is now gone. The constant reassurance that she was still important to you has disappeared, and in its absence, she starts to feel the emptiness that attention once filled. Validation is powerful. It's what keeps most people connected even when love fades. When she could sense that you still cared, even a little, it gave her a sense of control. Every time you replied, reacted, or even showed a sign of lingering emotion, it reminded her that she still mattered. But now, when she looks at you and sees that your peace is real, that you're genuinely focused on your own life and no longer orbiting around her, it creates a quiet panic inside her. She realizes that your energy, once so available, is now completely out of reach. This is the collapse of validation, and it's a powerful moment of reckoning. She starts questioning herself, wondering what went wrong, wondering if she lost her influence over you. It's not even about wanting you back. It's about wanting to feel relevant again. The same woman who once walked away now finds herself longing for the version of you who cared, because that version made her feel seen, admired, and emotionally safe. But the man who stands in front of her now, calm, detached, unbothered, no longer gives her that emotional feedback. He's centered in his own peace, and she can sense it. She might test you subtly, a message out of nowhere, a random story post, a small attempt to provoke a reaction. But when you don't bite, when you don't engage, when your silence is calm rather than cold, she starts to feel something she hasn't felt before: powerlessness. She can't reach you emotionally anymore, and that loss of access feels heavier than the breakup itself. It's not about ego at this point. It's about realization. She begins to see that while she was trying to prove something, you were growing past the need for approval. And that's the difference between a man who's healed and one who's still attached. You didn't move on to hurt her, you moved on to find peace. You stopped chasing validation because you discovered that real confidence comes from within, not from anyone's attention. She's left watching, remembering, and wondering, not about what went wrong, but how you found such strength in letting go. When you stop giving validation, you reclaim your power. And when she realizes that her approval no longer defines your peace, that's when she finally understands what true emotional freedom looks like. When she sees that you've moved on peacefully, your calmness becomes a mirror, one that reflects everything she once ignored, everything she took for granted, and everything she lost. At first, she doesn't want to look at that reflection. It's uncomfortable because it exposes her choices. But the more she observes your silence, your composure, and your growth, the harder it becomes to avoid. That mirror doesn't lie. It shows her that while she may have thought she was moving on to something better, she walked away from a man who was evolving, not chasing. And that realization stings. In the beginning, she might tell herself that you've changed only because you're pretending. She may convince herself that your peace is just a mask, a performance to make her feel regret. But over time, when she notices consistency, when she sees that you're still calm, still focused, still living your life without needing her presence, the denial starts to fade. That's when regret slowly creeps in. It doesn't arrive all at once, it comes in moments. When she scrolls through old pictures, when a song plays that reminds her of you, when she sees someone who resembles you, suddenly all those small details she once overlooked start to mean something again. She begins to replay old memories in her mind, not out of nostalgia, but because she's searching for where it went wrong. Her mind tries to find the moment she lost her emotional hold on you. She remembers the times she dismissed your kindness, the moments she ignored your effort, and the times she tested your patience thinking you would never leave. But now, that same patience is what defines your strength. You're no longer chasing what's lost, you've accepted it. And that acceptance creates a contrast she can't ignore. Your peace highlights her chaos. Your emotional maturity exposes her emotional impulsiveness. The man she once thought she had figured out has now become a mystery again. Not because you changed for her, but because you changed for yourself. And that's what makes her reflect even deeper. The more you glow in silence, the more she feels the weight of what she let go. She starts to understand that you were never weak for caring. She was blind for not valuing it. Regret is a powerful emotion, especially when it comes after indifference. It's not just about missing you, it's about realizing how rare your energy was. The kind of man who moves on peacefully isn't easily replaced. That calm strength, that emotional control, that unbothered presence, those are traits she might not find again. And when she finally accepts that, the mirror becomes clear. She doesn't just see you, she sees herself and the choices that cost her something real. When your peace becomes her mirror, She doesn't just remember what you were, she realizes what she lost. And that's the reflection that stays with her forever. When a woman sees you've moved on peacefully, something unusual begins to happen inside her mind. She becomes conflicted. Part of her starts to wonder if she still loves you, while another part of her knows it's not love she's feeling, but the pain of losing control. That confusion eats away at her slowly because, deep down, it's not really about missing you. It's about missing the power she once had over you. When you were emotionally available, she could sense it. Your energy revolved around her, your actions were influenced by her, and she felt safe knowing she could affect you. But when that connection is gone, when she realizes she no longer has the ability to touch your emotions, it creates a deep void that she can't fill easily. At first, she'll mistake this for love. She'll feel that familiar pull toward you and think, maybe I still have feelings for him. But the truth is, it's not love, it's the absence of control that's making her feel lost. She's not used to seeing you so calm, so indifferent, so focused on your own path. That peaceful energy you now carry disrupts her emotional rhythm. Her mind tries to understand it, to categorize it, but it can't because it's not something she expected from you. The man who once reacted now observes. The man who once needed answers now moves in silence. The man who once looked for closure has already created his own peace. This confusion between love and loss is powerful because it reopens emotional doors she thought were closed. She begins to remember moments that once made her feel important, your attention, your compliments, your presence. She misses the emotional high that came from being desired, but now, instead of feeling special, she feels replaced by your peace. That's what truly stings. It's not that you moved on too fast, it's that you did it without anger. Because anger would have meant she still mattered. Peace, however, means she doesn't hold space in your emotional world anymore. In her mind, she starts creating scenarios, wondering if you found someone else, if you're happier, or if you ever think about her. These thoughts start to spiral because they come from uncertainty. The silence you maintain leaves her imagination running wild, and every unanswered question becomes a reminder of her fading influence. She can't reach you anymore. Not physically, not emotionally, not mentally. And that sense of helplessness is what causes the emotional confusion to grow. Over time, she'll realize it wasn't love she was feeling, it was attachment to control. The peace you found within yourself took away her power to affect your emotions. And that power shift is something she can't easily accept. When she finally understands that your silence isn't distance but growth, the confusion fades and all that's left is the truth. She didn't lose a man, she lost control of one who no longer needed her validation. When a woman realizes you've moved on peacefully, one of the deepest emotional triggers she faces is the sudden awareness of what she lost. Not just you, but the version of herself she once was when she had your attention. She begins to see you differently now. The man she once took for granted is no longer chasing, explaining, or trying to prove his worth. You're not reacting, not reaching out, not even looking back. That calm detachment becomes something she can't ignore. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's powerful. It's a quiet confidence that says, I've accepted everything and I'm good without you. That realization shifts the emotional balance completely. At first, she may convince herself that she doesn't care. She'll tell herself she's moved on, that your peace doesn't affect her. But with time, that peaceful energy you radiate starts to bother her more than anger ever could. Because peace shows emotional maturity. It shows that you learned something she didn't expect you to. You didn't crumble, you evolved. And the more she sees this, the more she begins to question her own choices. Did she let go of something real? Did she underestimate your value? These questions echo in her mind because your peace highlights her chaos. What truly unsettles her is how you no longer need to prove anything. You're not in a competition. You're not seeking revenge. You're not posting out of ego or trying to make her jealous. You've simply outgrown the emotional battlefield she left you on. And that maturity creates a silent mirror she has to look into. For the first time, she sees her own behavior through your calmness. How she might have played games, how she might have tested you, how she might have tried to control the outcome. Now all of that seems meaningless because you're no longer affected. She can't push your buttons anymore. You've disconnected the wires she once pulled so easily. This inner realization hits her hardest when she compares your peace to her current emotional state. Maybe she's still seeking attention elsewhere, still looking for that same validation she once got from you. But when she sees you found that validation within yourself, it reminds her that true power doesn't come from control, it comes from detachment. And that's when the emotional tables turn. She starts to admire what she once overlooked, your stability, your discipline, your calm strength. It becomes clear that you didn't lose her, she lost you when she couldn't appreciate your peace. In the end, your peace becomes your greatest revenge. Not because it hurts her, but because it forces her to face her own reflection, to see how her actions pushed away the very man who was once willing to give her everything. And in that realization, she finally understands that nothing is more powerful or more attractive than a man who chooses peace over chaos. When a woman sees that you've truly moved on peacefully, she reaches a stage where she finally understands something she never did before. You were never chasing her, you were chasing peace. At this point, her emotions become a mixture of regret, respect, and realization. She starts to see the man she once knew with new eyes, and it begins to hit her differently. You're not the same person she walked away from. The version of you that once reacted emotionally, that once sought her validation, that once needed closure, that version no longer exists. In its place stands someone calm, grounded, and detached. That transformation doesn't just surprise her, it humbles her. The more she sees you at peace, the more she realizes that she no longer has access to your world. You've built a boundary she can't cross, not because you blocked her out, but because you outgrew the need for her presence. And that's a form of strength she never expected from you. It's not that she hates you for it, she respects it. But within that respect lies an ache, a quiet sadness that whispers, he doesn't need me anymore. That's when it becomes real for her. She understands that the man she once had emotional influence over has become emotionally untouchable. That truth is both painful and powerful. This phase is where her ego and her heart collide. Her ego resents that she lost her emotional control over you, but her heart begins to admire the version of you that grew from the pain she caused. She starts to remember the moments you tried to connect, the effort you put in, the love you gave, and she realizes that what she dismissed back then was rare. Your peace, your indifference, your growth, all of it now represents the kind of man she secretly wishes she had appreciated sooner. And that's the quiet irony of it all. Your peace became the very thing she falls for now. But the beauty of this stage is that it's no longer about her, it's about you. You've reached the point where your happiness isn't attached to her reaction, her regret, or her realization. You don't need her validation anymore. You've mastered emotional control, the art of letting go without bitterness. That's where real masculine strength lies. It's in the ability to walk away, heal, rebuild, and never look back with resentment. In the end, she's left with the weight of what she lost, while you're left with the lightness of what you found. Peace. She may still think about you, still replay the memories, still feel something when she sees your calm energy, but none of that matters anymore. Because when you move on peacefully, you don't just close a chapter, you finish the whole book and start writing a new one one where your happiness is no longer in someone else's hand.